There's a lot going on in Bloodborne's story, and I want to make it as clear as day for you with no BS. That is why I am making this video. I don't want to be pretentious and be like, look nowhere else because all your answers are right here. No one else is right, because I'm not like that. But in all honesty, I spent a lot of time on this video figuring things out for me and you, just to get a better understanding of the whole Bloodborne world and the plot. So I very unpretentiously say, you can't find a better story explanation anywhere else. Ha, thank you. And don't forget, spoilers.
Warning, this video contains possible spoilers on the subject material. Please be advised.
Yharnam is a city hidden amongst the furthest reaches of the treacherous eastern mountains, and is named after its queen. Yharnam is known for its blood healing, as well as the plague epidemic called the Scourge of the Beast that has spread outside of its walls. Many sick travelers have made their way to Yharnam's gates to seek a certain mysterious procedure, despite its puzzling and sacrilegious nature. That is why you're there. You are cursed with the plague and you are having a transfusion of blood done by a mysterious man in a top hat known as the Blood Minister, to rid you of the Scourge of the Beast. The burning beast is a hallucination and symbolism of the beast blood being bled away, while unknown Yharnam blood is transfused back into you. The man warned you you might see things like this during the procedure.
Whatever happens, you may think it all a mere bad dream.
In exchange for the healing, you sign yourself into a contract to become a hunter to help rid the streets of the plague, as did many others before you.
All signed and sealed.
But that's not all the contract entails, and this contract can be broken, as in Eileen the Crow's, Jorah's, and Alfred's case. When they die for reals.
No more dreams for me. This is my last chance.
I no longer dream, but I was once a hunter too.
You're a beast hunter, aren't you? That's precisely how I started out.
A message in the hunter's dream reads, to escape this dreadful hunter's dream, halt the source of the spreading scourge of beasts, lest the night carry on forever. It's a bit riddling at first, but it's actually your contract. It basically says, to be freed of this contract, stop the plague so the sun can rise again. In this world, it's basically an endless night while the beasts run rampant, and the healing church believes the Paleblood is the first step to stopping them. Immediately into the hunt, you are told to seek Paleblood.
Oh, yeah. Paleblood.
And just what is Paleblood? I'll explain. You talk to Gilbert about it, but his lack of knowledge on Paleblood is misleading. He doesn't know what Paleblood means, as he's not a member of the healing church and thought you were actually asking him about blood treatment. But that's understandable, he's sick, so cut him some slack. From Software is trying to mislead you on purpose.
I haven't heard of pale blood.
Pale blood is actually referring to the color of the moon and sky after a certain ritual, and is another name for the celestial deity that governs it, known as the moon presence. That's how the moon presence got its name, because when it descends, the moon in the sky looks similar to the color of a pale blood. A note in the college reads, the nameless moon presence beckoned by Lawrence and his associates, pale blood. That's saying that the moon presence is Paleblood. So after defeating Rom, the vacuous spider, you beckon the moon presence, and there's your Paleblood. A Paleblood moon brought about by the moon presence. Behold, a Paleblood sky! As you progress as a hunter, defeating many celestial great ones, you absorb insight. But understand this, the numbers on your screen do not in any way reflect how much insight you have gained plot-wise. You progressively become more and more powerful with each great one you slay, despite how much insight the game says you have. After the Rom fight, you consume all his garnered insight and you become so enlightened that the amygdala creatures become visible. Before, this was only possible after having 40 insight. Also, after defeating Rom, you can't help but hear a baby's cry in the ambience of every area, which also was only possible after having 60 insight. So if you defeat Rom and you have 0 insight, you'll still hear the baby's cry and see the creatures on the buildings. That's proof that the number of insight does not have any correlation with the insight you have via the plot. In the scriptures of the Bergenworth mansion, it says, when the red moon hangs low and the great ones descend, a womb will be blessed with a child. Hearing the baby's cries all over the place leads me to believe not just one womb, but many, and 3 that we know of. The great ones are unable to conceive children themselves and do so through immaculate conception in humans. This has to have happened before, as these infants are found swarming the Upper Grand Cathedral, only much more grown. Aw, ain't it the cutest little bugger? Since you found Paleblood, your next objective comes from a message. Seek the Nightmare Newborn. And another message. Nightmarish rituals crave a newborn. Find one and silence its harrowing cry. Your hunt is now for the celestial newborn Mergo, but you will encounter 3 newborns in your travels, and for the true ending, you consume their umbilical cords, as gross as that may seem, for massive plot-related insight. This was hinted at in the college. Their studies were to achieve a high enough enlightenment to be on the same level as the Great Ones and to surpass their own stupidity. I believe Yosefka was a graduate of this college, and then later became a part of the choir, ascending the ladder of the Healing Church. The woman in the gown seen after defeating Rom and seen just before encountering Mergo's wet nurse is known as the Queen Yharnam. That's right, the very establishment the game is based in was named after her, and I believe she is the first to give birth to a nightmare newborn, judging from her bloodied gown. And I'm assuming she died shortly after defeating Rom, appearing as a spirit. But that is just speculation on my part. Mergo's wet nurse is acting as a nanny to tend to the newborn after Yharnam's death. The wet nurse is a descendant of the Pale Moon and a great one, on par with the Moon Presence, as you can tell by the Nightmare Slain message that only occurs after defeating the Moon Presence and Mergo's wet nurse. After defeating it, the baby's cries are silenced, and its umbilical cord is taken. The second womb is that of Yosefka, and before you can even witness her birth, you can kill her and the nightmare newborn within her womb, taking the second umbilical cord. The third womb is that of Ariana, the woman of the night, who gives birth to the nightmare newborn in the sewers beneath Odon Chapel. It is said her baby was immaculately conceived by the deity Odon, the formless one. Killing her baby results in the third umbilical cord. A fourth, elusive umbilical cord is on what would be the rune workshop of the abandoned old workshop. It's an ancient celestial umbilical cord dating back before the encounter with the Pale Moon, which beckoned the hunters and conceived the hunter's dream. Basically, it dated back before the plagues and corruption, before hunters or the hunter's dream were even necessary. They are considered a third of an umbilical cord because it is really the precursor to the cord and is lined with eyes, and when consuming them, you gain 3 in-game insight each. There's no telling how much insight you gain plot-wise, but let's just say a lot. Enough to repel the very god the Yharnamites worship when consuming at least 3 of them. When you defeat the Moon Presence, you are born again as the next god, essentially, lifting humanity into its next childhood. What I think that means is that the slate was wiped clean, a fresh start, and the world has begun anew, free of plagues caused by humankind's misuse of old blood, and free of insanity-ridden curses caused by humankind's obsessions with the arcane. This is the true ending. I'll reiterate this later. In killing Mensis, killing the Nightmare Newborn, and releasing the captive Great One that was used to study and harness its power, you basically stop the source of the Scourge of the Beast and end the endless night. Thus, your duties are fulfilled and the contract is null and void. If you choose to become the next Great One for the true ending, it is up to you, as there are still 2 other endings. In confronting Gehrman, he makes it very clear that if you die, you'll forget everything and wake anew in the real world, everything having been purified and cleansed thanks to you. All the tombstones surrounding you are a clear indication that many hunters have died here in this way to reawaken in the real world. This is the means of ending the contract you signed when getting the blood treatment at the beginning of the game. Even exalted hunters are terminated in this way. And look, they're doing fine. Mostly. Gehrman comes off as very non-foreboding and explains it to you in very clear terms.
You will die, forget the dream, and awake under the morning sun. You will be freed.
In the good ending, if you accept death, you wake anew outside of Yharnam under the sunrise, successfully being cured of the plague, alive and free. You have fulfilled your duties and you can carry on. That's why it's the good ending. But if you refuse, you get the bad ending. Gehrman will try to kill you, against your will. If you manage to defeat him, the Moon Presence comes down and appoints you the new Hunter's advisor, assuming that's what you wanted. Essentially taking Gehrman's place as an advisor and being trapped in the dream for ages. And that's why it's the bad ending. Let's go back to the true ending, as I feel it needs reiteration. After consuming the umbilical cords, you become more powerful than the Moon Presence itself, and it is unable to appoint you as the new Hunter's advisor to take Gehrman's place. In realizing it is unable to control you, it attempts to kill you. After it dies, you're transformed into the next newborn deity, from which you will grow. How this happens is intentionally unclear, but it is up for interpretation, so theorize away. Maybe you become so insightful, so enlightened, and so powerful that you collapse in on yourself and you become this little leech baby. I don't know. Theorize. It's up to you. But for me, other questions are brought up, such as, if you stop the source of the Scourge of the Beast, why does the hunter's dream still need to exist? I thought maybe the workshop being on fire was symbolism for the end of the hunter's dream. There would be no more plagues, no more beasts, and especially no more stragglers seeking blood treatment and becoming hunters. So why does the hunter's dream still exist in at least 2 of the endings? Perhaps the hunter's dream will always be around, as we all know history does repeat itself and more than likely does in this world. We know at one point the hunter's dream was non-existent. Maybe it's just around for gameplay purposes so you can start a new game. Who knows? Is it possible that after the sunset, beasts come out again and it's an endless day and night cycle? Perhaps the moon presence is the moon god, governing when the night ends and begins, and yet there's another deity pulling the strings for when the sun rises and sets, similar to ancient beliefs. There's plenty to theorize about, but with little evidence to go on, I'd rather just keep it the mystery it is for now. As I may have said before, once upon a time, I'm all for the Lovecraftian mystery. So there you have it, Bloodborne story in a nutshell. Who you are, what are hunters, and all the endings explained. Bet you were really lost at first, like I was, but now it should all make good sense to you as it does for me. Be sure to subscribe for more on Bloodborne lore and explanations of other characters and more.